How are you guys?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Sagar, theek hai?
Majid.
Great. All right. All right. Now let me invite on stage Dr. Nandita Shah from the Akshara Center. Akshara is a not-for-profit women's organization and resource center working for the empowerment of women and girls from the last 2 decades. Making our society gender equal is the vision of Akshara, and Ariel is grateful for their support in spreading the message of share the load. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us today as we unveil the latest edition of the Share the Load film. So we can sit down now, I think. That's good. So, Genelia, my first question is for you.
Yes.
It's $1 million question. Did Riteish share the load during the lockdown?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah. No. He did.
He did.
Yeah.
How did that feel? Was it good? Fun?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's not only about the lockdown. I just feel that it's because we've known each other for a very long time. And from our first film, it's almost 20 years, 10 years of marriage. So throughout our journey, we've always looked at each other as equals in terms of opinions, in terms of respecting each other's spaces, freedoms, and opinions. So even post-marriage, whenever we did things, we've tried. It was never like this is your job or I'm not supposed to do this.
Right.
As a man and a woman, more than anything else. I think so. During lockdown, of course, we got to spend time in a way that we didn't have to go out. We had to stay in-house for almost 6 to 8 months to a year, and at that time it was fun to do things together.
Yeah, it was nice to spend that time together as well.
Yeah.
Of course. Dr. Nandita, do you see some social change happening post the lockdown? Have men gone back to their usual routine and, things have gone back to normal in a sense?
I must admit that when the lockdown happened, you suddenly saw so many men putting their photographs up on cooking and cleaning and even with broom in their hand. And I think what really changed was that the shame of doing this work was something that we questioned, and men were okay about it. But suddenly, post-lockdown, I think we're kind of going back to normal. And that is a question that we really think that a conversation like this brings back. Why do we have to go back? Why can't we go one step forward? And that is what I think the question of normalizing this whole conversation and what you raised, saying, why are we not teaching our sons what we teach our daughter? So when a guest comes, we'll tell our 8-year-old daughter, beta, pani le jao, but we never tell our son. And then, he builds in himself an understanding that this is not what I'm supposed to do. So even when he is doing something, he's helping. It's not his responsibility. And that's what the conversation
is all about.
That really is what we have to change.
Right. Ritesh, why do you think it is that men shy away from partaking in equal responsibility at home?
I think deep down, like ma'am said, it's important at early age to teach boys how they see their mothers. It's important as parents that you show your children that mother and father are equals. Only then will they learn how to treat their wives or sisters. And it's important. I think for a very long time, being in a society that we are, and I'm not talking about long time, I'm talking about, say, thousands and 500 and hundreds of years ago, we've always seen men go out, strive to do more, and women are at home. But now women are doing today what men did forever, and they are probably doing it better than men. And it's important to respect that space, it's important to respect that choice. And I understand when ma'am says that, why don't we teach our boys what we teach our girls? And I think that today's generation or the next generation, that when I see my children, of course, that's what I mean by next generation, when they see that, okay, this is how I'm not saying my father treated my mother, but I'm saying that this is how my father and mother treated each other. That is important, and that's what they should learn. And I'm sure that we as parents need to set an example for them to take this ahead. And that's how it will begin at each. See, instead of telling others what to do, you practice at your home.
Yeah.
You set an example at home. And if everyone does that in their own houses, I think we'll have a better country and a better world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Genelia, do you see this change in the generational change that's happening as time is passing? Things are getting
Yeah, I
better?
definitely see it, but I also see that there's a long way to, go as well in many households. I mean, I'm one of the fortunate households where we both share, and there's a inherent understanding that if you're working, I'll take over. If I'm working, I'll take. It's just an understanding that doesn't have to be pronounced, but it's done. It's done at every level. But I do see it very often with my friends, and where it's like, but I can't do that. I'm tired. I mean, like I always say, being a housewife is very often taken for granted, because it's considered as a no job. Whereas in my opinion, it's the toughest
biggest job.
Yeah,
And it's a 24-hour job.
It's a
You never have time off.
24-hour job, and no appreciation, nothing to it. So very often that space is misunderstood. You know what I'm saying? Like probably a man at the house who's working will come back and say, "But I've worked the whole day."
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I didn't.
Exactly.
That's,
Yeah. Wow, what a lovely insight. Thank you so much. C equal to share the load. Genelia, I can see that you really liked, being a part of a partnership, and you, Riteish, as well. So it's really lovely for you guys to see each other working together so hard on this and sending out this message, because it's really, really important. Okay, on that note, we have the new film on Share the Load, which will possibly give us some insight as to why we are not seeing more men take up equal responsibility of household chores today. Ladies and gentlemen, attention to the screen, and here we go as we launch the 5th edition of Ariel's Share the Load movement. Can we have the film, please? Genelia, I can see by the look on your face that you really like this one. And I want to get your thoughts on it as well, Dr. Nandita. But before I come to the two of you, being the man on stage, I want to ask Riteish his perspective on the film.
I saw the film earlier today, and so much of it is so true that men, when you're living in hostels, you have roommates, you're fine doing the daily chores together. Someone is cleaning, someone is cooking, guests come over, and I have been part of this. I have lived for 2 years in a hostel. I was living in America with a dear friend of mine for over a year and sharing an apartment. And this is the life that we had. And I'm absolutely, I identify with two boys being together and, sharing the stuff. But when I saw the film, it was about a wife and the husband, where many a times you see that the husband's time is more important. He's a decision maker, and he says, "It's okay, we'll manage." He says we'll manage, but eventually the wife or the homemaker has to manage everything. And the simple thing is taken for granted. That's the bottom of it. The moment in a relationship, you don't take the other person for granted, everything is okay. And the first thing when you take for granted is the fact that you are not an equal. You feel you're superior, so you are taking the other person for granted. And that's where it goes down.
Yeah, that's so true. And look, and in fact, what I took away from the film was how real it felt. It didn't look like there were actors playing the part. And that's what the beauty of it was, actually. I mean, this is how actual conversations between husband and wife take place. Yeah, I mean, I can see Genelia nodding her head,
Hi, excuse me. We can't see Genelia. I mean, can anyone in the audience spot her? What's happening?
No?
She there? So Genelia.
That's pretty much how it is, right? Women almost become invisible.
Yeah, well, round of applause. Yes, got the point of that. So, what a way for everyone here to kind of realize the emotion of women who are not seen as equals. I welcome everyone to the first ever press con with invisible guests, because it's only when you see someone as equal that you're actually seeing them at all. I wanted to come to you, Dr. Nandita. Akshara is known to be an ally in fighting gender biases at all levels, whether it's home, the workplace, etc. What do you have to say about the film?
You know, when I saw the film, it was really powerful. And we have been associated with Share the Load from the beginning for last 5 years. And I think this conversation that Share the Load has started has had a huge impact. And we worked even taking this to colleges and the concept of why is it that we can't share the load. So I found the film very powerful. And I think it's need of the hour, and men have to start seeing women as equal. But equally important, women have to see ourselves as equal and assert us as equal. And I think somewhere that also is the point that's made, and that's the realization that the person who is asking the question, you know, what's happening, why am I not being seen as equal? And I think that is a challenge that we need to really take up today. How do we make this conversation? And the film has just initiated woman as the person who's asking the question. And I think that if each one of us can ask, and if men can realize this, we can really see the change that this conversation will bring. Right. And we want to bring this conversation to every living room and every place, that why is it that we are not able to see this? And what, as Riteish said, that why are we not able to see each other and take each other for granted? So, you know, and we constantly keep raising this question. You know, men help in the house. I mean, no doubt that they come in and whenever they feel, but we are not talking about help. We are talking about responsibility. You know, if sugar is not there, he will be happy to say that I'll go get the sugar. But I want somebody to also say that, look at it and say sugar is not there. And I think that's the kind of responsibility we are talking about, sharing. And I think that conversation is what we need to have today.
Lovely. Genelia, what are your thoughts on the film?
No, I pretty much agree with Dr. Nandita. I think it's true that very often we don't realize it at home. I'm even talking in the best case scenario where, you know, the man in the house doesn't really realize that he's taking so much for granted. And like she said, it's very important for the women to also bring it forward that, you know, today I'm tired, can you take on the responsibility for the day? Or, you know, but very often as women, even if you're tired, or even if you're not having a great day, or even if you want to do something other than that, you'll say, no, I'll do this. And then it starts catching up, and then, you know, you aid it not being equal very often, I feel. So yeah, it's very important as women that you stand up and you say that, you know, let's do this equally. And I'm sure, like I say, very often it's important to say that you need to do certain things. Like I remember when Riteish and me were, you know, this whole distant education which had driven all mums crazy, like, you know, because it was like doing the teacher's work at home, and it was tough. And they were like, I would do it 5 times a week, and I would get tired by the end of it. And I didn't even know why I was getting tired, you know, because I said, I'm at home and, you know, it's fine. And one day I just told him, I said, you know, I think I'm tired. Can you take up one day? And he was like, yeah, sure. You know, the point of it is that I just thought that I could do it, which I couldn't. But when I told him, can you know, just take up this one day, he was more than willing to do it, you know. So sometimes it's a matter of communication, sometimes it's a matter of realization, and sometimes it's important that even if you don't realize it and someone brings it to your notice, to figure it out towards the end. Yeah.
Of course, very well said. Now, we saw this year, the Insight Share the Load talks about is that if men were able to split the responsibility of household chores with others, then why not with their wives? It may be because they don't see women as equals, and this results in a disproportionate weight of chores on women. And to get an understanding of how true this is, we have a small activity, And I want to invite my guests to come towards the weighing scales to see if in reality inequality exists between a man and a woman versus two men who are living together. Are you ready? Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we have two sets of scales. Yes, you can. Okay, so now we have two sets of scales here. This one represents the equation between two men living together. This one over here. And this one represents the equation between a husband and a wife. With the help of some statistics, we will look at how to establish how true inequality actually is. All right, Riteish, you represent the men and husbands of the nation. A lot of pressure. Hence, you will be required to put the weights on this guy right here.
Okay, this one?
Yeah, that one.
That's there already weights
which reads
there.
men versus men. Yeah, they've already got the weights on.
Okay.
Genelia, you embody the women of today who speaks for herself and will fight inequality of any kind. So you will be required to put weights on this weighing scale right here, which is men versus women. And we would like to request Dr. Nandita to read out the statistics. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, if you could share the first stat.
I don't have this.
That's on the screen.
Right.
They're here. 73% men agreed that they did.
Yes. So 73% of men agreed that they did their share of household chores when they were staying with other men and women.
Wow. So what am I supposed to do now?
So you need to. How do you feel about the stat that she's just given?
So
Do you want to read out the stat one more time?
73% of men agreed that they did their share of household chores when they were staying with other men or roommates.
So are we supposed to?
Yeah, we agree.
So we agree. So I mean that's the stat. So
What are we supposed to do?
okay. So that's okay. So rightfully so that weight is divided between men. They have shared, and hence there's a certain balance that I see between two men staying together and sharing the load.
So you think this is true? Yes.
Yes,
Equal.
of course. I think
Okay.
it's true. I think men staying together share the load.
Okay, and Genelia, as a representative of all women, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I think so.
You agree? All right. Let's cue to the next one.
Yes. 70% of women believe that their weekend or holiday is less important than their husband.
I agree. Can I put that here?
Yeah. Wow.
Do you agree?
Okay.
So Genelia, tell us about this one. Tell us why you think that.
Like I said, very often women are the homemakers at home. I mean, things are changing, but primarily we are homemakers at home. And the Saturday, Sundays, if you're working, then it becomes about catching up during the week on the Saturday, Sunday. And if you're not working, it's just another day that you got. So yeah, I would agree with that point.
All right. Next stat, please.
83% of women feel that men don't see women as equal when it comes to housework.
I would agree with that. That a lot of women at home, and it basically just goes to prove that men feel that the kind of work that they do is much superior to a woman at home, and hence they deserve their weekends off. And like Genelia said, that the woman is working Monday to Friday at home, taking care of the house. She does not get a break day, because when the husband is at home, then she has to take care of the husband and the children who are spending the entire time. So there are no days off for the woman, but men usually get the day off and they think they deserve their break.
Have you ever felt that, Genelia? Have you ever felt that you were not being seen as an equal ever?
No, I mean, no, actually not, because like I said, I haven't been working. I've just got back to work, and I have a film coming up which I'm going to be doing, and Riteish is relatively free during that time. I mean, he has work, but he had just spoken to someone saying that I think Genelia is working, so it's time for me to stay at home and take that on.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's
So,
amazing.
so I think there's that kind of understanding between the both of us. Like I chose to stay at home when the kids were younger. It wasn't that like Riteish kept telling me you got to get back to work and you got to do this and that and the other. But I chose to take that part at home. And I think we understand that, while one has to work and, the bills have to be paid.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
Yeah, it is a partnership. Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. So now in just 3 statistics or 3 situations, we have seen how different the scenario is between the 2 equations. The scale is fairly equal between the 2 men, perfectly balanced. This signals equality. But if we juxtapose with the equation of being a husband and wife, we can see how the woman has to carry a disproportionate weight. What is it? This is the representative of physical, mental, and emotional load that women carry as a result of not being seen as treated equals. Movement year after year. One who has taken the onus to keep advocating for gender equality in the division of household chores, and the other whose creative excellence is evident through the very creative film that we just saw. Please put your hands together to welcome on stage Sharat Verma, Chief Marketing Officer, P&G India, and Vice President, Fabric Care, P&G India. Welcome. And joining him, we have Josie Paul, Chairman and Chief Creative Officer, BBDO India. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us. Ariel has always aimed to fuel the conversation around equality within households by bringing up relevant and pertinent conversations. Sharat, can you please tell us a little more about the idea behind this year's narrative?
Sure. So as you said, right, Ariel believes that it wants, that it can be a force for good and a force for growth. You want to spark meaningful conversations which can drive cultural change that the consumer wants to see. This year's See Equal is all about addressing the inherent bias, sometimes unconscious bias, and conditioning that's coming really in the way of us achieving gender equality in the division of household chores. A recent World Economic Forum report said that gender equality is really 135 years away. That means no one in this room is going to see a world where we have gender equality unless we hasten the pace of change, right? And that's really what this year is about, right? Interestingly, 73%, and the stat was up, and Riteish talked about his experience, right? When men live with other men, they share the load equally, right? And 73% of the men confess that yes, when I was in college or when I was with my roommate, there was no question of not sharing the load equally, right? But even though that's true, and if you ask them further, they said, of course, 80% of men tell us that, if I were to share the load equally, it'll be better for my relationship, right? But despite all of that, only 25% of urban households have men sharing the load, right, equally. So there's a long way to go. And that's really what the inside of this year's movement is about. And why do I call Share the Load a movement? Because cultural change takes time, right? It's not going to happen overnight. We've been on this journey since 2015. We've made tremendous progress through the years, where, when we started off, over 79% of Indian married men said laundry is only a woman's job. Last year, that number was down to 41.
Wow.
So we
That's
made
great.
massive progress over the years, but there's such a
Amazing.
long way to go, right? And therefore, and we know that when you see equal, you share the load, and that's really what this year is about. Go down to address really the conditioning and unconscious bias that exists, and that's really coming in the way of men participating more equally in the division of household chores.
Well, congratulations. This change is so powerful and so huge and so needed. You've made such an impact. Josie, we saw the film and it's mind-blowing. It's really, really powerful and thought-provoking as well. But as the man who is behind this, I wanted to ask your thoughts on it and what stands out for you in this film the most.
Yeah, so I think what stands out for me the most is the truth, okay? And that every bit of that film is true. And this truth has not come from some creative guy. It's come from what people tell us, right? We are guilty of it ourselves. So it's in the nuances that this film stands out for me. But there is one thing that stands out more than other, which is for the first time in our 5-year sort of journey, the woman's taking the matter into her own hands. She's not waiting for anyone, right? She is inviting the man for a conversation. She's saying, let's talk about it. Do you know what happened today? And then she gives you evidence like an emotional lawyer, almost telling you, come on, it's out there, very clear. And I think you can't say no to that. No man can say no to that. And so that's what for me stands out, that she represents all women who are impatient. And I think it also reflects the rising impatience that we're seeing in society today. The chief of the UN Women calls it radical impatience. We may see it in different sort of spectrums, but it is there. And what we've tried to do is sort of capture that. We never wrote anything. We merely curated the feeling that's out there in society. And that's what stands out for me, the pure truth.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Josie. Sharat, what is the idea of this year's film?
But the idea is simple, as I said, right? It's really, as I said, 80% of men said that they know that if they share the load, it'll impact their relationship positively, right? We know that, men know that. We've seen, to the point that Nandita was making earlier, men coming forward and helping during the lockdown, right? We know, 80% of women tell us that they know that their partners are fully capable of doing any household chore, right? Because there's this whole excuse that men have that, no, you're better at it, right? Which I think women know and can see through, right? So really the idea here is that, if men know that it's good for their relationship, they know how to do it, they've done it in the past, what's really coming in the way of them, sharing the load, right? We've talked through the years on bias, that's now being passed on to the next generation. I think Nandita talked about, your children are seeing how you conduct yourself and learning from what you see. You're normalizing bias for them, which I don't think any parent wants to do, right? So this year is really about, looking at, the argument that the protagonist makes in the film, internalizing that, and trying to change your inherent bias so that you can, more equally share the load.
Okay.
And I think it's visible, right? You're using comparison with your neighbor, with two men. So it's visual. You can see it for yourself.
Yeah.
So that visualization of it is as important as the intellectualization of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's
well,
what
it's
the
the
film is
action
doing.
behind it,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And
the
how
action.
that action spreads and
Yes.
how we kind of catch on to it.
Yeah,
I mean, as you said, it'll
Absolutely.
take another 135 years, but at least we're on our way.
Oh, yeah.
All right, now along with launching the new Share the Load film today, we also are unveiling the special edition Share the Load pack. And I would now like to request our panelists to move towards the turntable, please. To our wonderful panelists. Thank you to Ariel for continuing to further the cause of gender equality in the division of household chores. Thank you again to all of you for being here, for taking the time. Thank you to our panelists for being here and for taking the time. And for our friends in the media who are here with us today, and also for those who have joined us virtually, thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. We hope you will help us spread the message further and help bring about this much needed change. Thank you so much, and goodbye. Do we have any questions from the media? Yes. Is there a mic coming around, or maybe you just have to stand up and be really loud?
I'm sure there'll be a mic there.
Yeah. Is there a mic? No.
ऊपर आने का कारण फिर हरकत कर रहा तो खाली हो
Okay, so sir, you came here for the share the equal load. So what do you want to say about it?
What do I want to say about this campaign? I think it's a wonderful campaign, which starts a conversation, ignites a thought that men and women are equal. And in the house itself, it's important for the husbands to share the load that the wife is bearing for so many years. And she also needs space. She also needs to be seen as an equal.
Ma'am, what do you want to say about it?
No, I think it's a very important message because, I've been blessed to be in a home where my husband understands the meaning of sharing the load, but very often it isn't, and in most households it's treated, there's not even a conversation that's made. So I think this is an extremely important message to share the load, to treat things equally, and that's the only way we can progress ahead in life.
So do you believe we live in a 2022 and it's important to use this kind of hashtag where we can equally share the load with boys and girls are equal right now? So do you believe it is important to use this kind of hashtag?
I think it's important because, when we talk about equality so much, it's most often an urban phenomenon. यानी बड़े बड़े सिटीज़ में आपको देखने को मिलता है, लेकिन आप जब छोटे शहरों में जाते हो तो शायद ये इक्वालिटी देखने ना मिले। पर जब हम ऐसी फिल्में बनाते हैं, एक कॉन्वर्सेशन शुरू करते हैं, घर में जब लोग देखेंगे तो ऐसा नहीं है कि जो घर में पत्नी है या माँ है उसको ऐसा लगना चाहिए कि ये बात मुझे करनी चाहिए। मुझे लगता है कि ऐसी फिल्म देखने के बाद शायद जो पति है या पिता है या भाई है घर पे, उन्हें भी ऐसा लगना चाहिए नहीं यार हम लोग जो घर में कर रहे हैं वो थोड़ी ज़्यादती है। जो घर में जिस तरह का वातावरण है या जो घर की महिला है वो सब काम करती है। हम लोग हफ्ते में 5 दिन काम करते हैं, ऑफिस में वापस घर आते तो हमको लगता है यार हफ्ते भर काम कर ले, अभी थोड़ा आराम करना चाहिए। और 5 दिन तो वो माँ, वो बहन, वो बेटी, वो बहू भी 5 दिन से काम कर ही रही है घर पे। तो शनि और रविवार की जब आती है बात, वीकेंड, तब बच्चे घर पे आ जाते हैं, उनकी छुट्टियाँ होती है, पति की छुट्टी होती है, तो फिर अरे यार मुझे ये चाहिए, वो लोड और बढ़ जाता है। तो वो वक्त होता है जब आप वो लोड कम कर दें। दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट।
Ma'am, would you like to add few lines?
No, I absolutely agree. I think what Riteish said is absolutely true, and it's absolutely important to communicate this.
Lastly, what projects you are looking forward and what are your upcoming projects?
Sorry?
What are your upcoming projects and what kind of projects you are looking forward?
No, currently I'm directing my first Marathi film, Made, with Genelia, of course. And after that, for Shahad Ali T-Series, Genelia and me are doing another film called Mr. Mummy. So very excited about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.